Hey everybody, how you doing? This is awkward. Listen, I know we got some splaining to do. So it's been like
11 months
since we last posted a thing, and I know we're no strangers to disappearing for a while, but this time it actually wasn't our fault entirely 100% maybe. Some quick background on what actually goes on when we work on Crystal's Wrath. In the very, 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 very early days, what we would just do is send files back and forth to each other. I would make a model, I would send it to JB, he would do some coding, he would send that back to me, and it was a goddamn nightmare-ass mess. And really early on, we realized we needed a far more sophisticated way of synchronizing our builds. And I'm sure everybody's just like, that's why you use GitHub. You gotta use GitHub. You gotta get GitHub. Why don't you use GitHub? No, we didn't want to use GitHub. We settled on a version control software known as Perforce. Essentially, what Perforce does is it lets you set up a local depot where all your files go. You connect to it with clients, and you push changes to the depot, and then anybody else who's working on the project can just get the latest revision of all the files from the depot. Their end is updated. They can push changes as well. Anyone else can just get the latest revision, get updated, and it works lickety-split pretty good, actually. And it's all private. It runs on your own network. Your files are yours. You don't send them to some fucking cloud thing, and it's not publicly available or any of that, and it's just how we wanted to do it. I ended up getting a real cheap IBM server, old, but good enough for what we wanted to do. It was actually so old and cheap, in fact, that I got 3 of them for some reason. Just in case. And basically the way that server worked is it had a copy of Windows 7 running on it, and it ran the Perforce server, and that was basically it. And that worked for quite a long time, until about
11 months
ago. It's probably pretty apparent by the way our upload schedule works, but the way we work on the game is in chunks. Usually for like a month or 2, we'll work on the game and think about nothing else and just focus on working on Crystal's Wrath. Then we'll take a vacation from Crystal's Wrath. We'll take a long break because life gets in the way, work gets in the way, all that kind of shit. Then we come back to the game, do the same thing, and it's kind of that sort of pattern, as you could probably tell if you look at the upload schedule. So it was like right around when Nitro Fueled came out is when we took our last break. We wanted to play the game and chill and not worry about that, and then stuff started picking up at work. Whatever. And then when we came back to work on Crystal's Wrath, the server was dead. I mean, like, really dead. At first, we just couldn't log in. I thought it had crashed, and all we'd have to do was reboot it. I don't know how long it was sitting on, crashed, but by the time we got back to it, the entire boot drive was just fucked. I don't know what the hell happened. The thing would just not boot. At first, I didn't even think it was the hard drive. I thought something else was wrong, and I had all those spare servers, so I threw all the drives in one of the spares, and then it worked for about 5 minutes. At that point, I realized it was probably a good idea to take a step back and reevaluate what I was doing. So yeah, it quickly became clear that the C drive was dead. Thankfully, nothing about this situation resulted in any data loss. The C drive, the boot Windows drive, that's not where any of the versioning files are saved. Plus, I have a copy of the game on my computer, JB has a copy of the game on his computer. I think we're covered in terms of redundancy on that. So the initial idea was just to replace the drive, reinstall Windows, reconfigure everything, and just get the server back up and running. But I didn't like that idea. You see, doing that would just leave us in the same exact position, vulnerable to the same stupid thing happening again. So if we're gonna put any effort into fixing this, we're gonna do it better. What I wanted to do was just save up some money, build a whole new server, all new parts, brand new drives, and go about this a little bit more intelligently. See, one thing I identified as a failure point for how our old server sucked is the fact that there was Windows on a C drive, and that drive could fail and basically stop the whole show even though all the data's fine. and that seems really dumb. So I decided we're gonna go Linux, Unraid, something I know absolutely nothing about. It honestly ended up being a lot more straightforward than I was initially worried it was gonna be, but the big delay was just waiting to be able to afford to build a new server. It's kind of why I wanted to be pretty quiet about what had actually happened for a while, because I don't think too many people would have believed us if we hadn't waited until after we had built the new server.
Oh, what's the delay with Crystal's Wrath now, guys? Your server broken? Yeah, right.
And I didn't want people to misconstrue it and get the vibe we were asking for donations for this. Here's a time lapse of me building the server. It's already done. If anybody's curious about the specs, it's really not that impressive. It's our first gen Ryzen 3 1200 quad core running at 3.1 gigahertz. 16 gigs of RAM, which is probably overkill for this. And the most expensive part was 4 4TB hard drives, with one of them dedicated to parity, which leaves us with 12 terabytes of total space. So any single hard drive can die, and we wouldn't lose any data or have any downtime. I know you're probably thinking, do you guys really need 12 terabytes of storage to work on Crystal's Wrath? And no, we don't. We don't even need 100 gigs, probably not even 50. But I was being a little forward-thinking when building this. Of course, it's going to be for Crystal's Wrath, but any other projects that we work on in the future, it's going to be for archiving videos and just all kinds of other stuff. I don't plan to fill 12 terabytes anytime soon, but it's going to be nice to be able to grow into it. There's one thing I should mention. I kind of fucked up when picking this CPU. Not that there's anything wrong with the CPU, but I had assumed that there was integrated graphics when I clicked buy on Newegg. And the very next day, I got this nagging suspicion and had to look it up, and no, first gen Ryzen does not have integrated graphics. So I don't want to put a graphics card in the server because that would be just a huge waste of money because it would never be used. So I had my fingers crossed. I slapped my graphics card in just for the initial setup, pulled it out, and just hoped that it would boot completely headless with no graphics whatsoever. And it does. And so far, it's working absolutely great. We had one issue where we had to change the setting in the BIOS. I guess the power supply kept going into like a low power state whenever it would idle for too long, and then Unraid would just become completely unresponsive. So we changed that, and now it's perfectly fine. It works awesome, and I'm just really happy with it so far. We're back to work on Crystal's Wrath. No problems at all yet, and I hope you guys thought this video was kind of interesting. Again, sorry we were gone for so long. This time it wasn't entirely our fault, 100% maybe, perhaps. But I swear, we're back at it. New stuff coming soon. You guys are gonna like it. We'll see you next time. Bye!